I cannot tell you how many poorly run law firms out there think that they're the greatest business people on the planet. High performers don't want to be around low performers. People who are excellent do not want to be around mediocrity. And those are kind of the three things that really, I think, were, of anything else, that's kind of was the secret sauce in success. You need to be considering 20 to 35% of your revenue to be spending in marketing. If you're not spending that kind of a nut in this space, you are behind the eight ball already.
You are listening to Sharp Strategies, Sweet Success.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. You're listening to Sharp Strategies, Sweet Success. I'm your host, Tiffany Swidensky, and today I have with me Eric Sanchez. Eric Sanchez is the founder and CEO of Maestro Strategic Partners, and I kind of flubbed my pronunciation of that. Also, the founder of Evolve Law. Do I have that right on here?
It's Maestro Strategic Partners. Evolve Law is the URL.
Oh, it's the URL. Okay. And so happy to have him here with me today and to talk with him. So I'll let him finish out his introduction.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I always enjoy talking shop. Yeah, I started Maestro about 3 years ago. Before that was an operator, a large firm in North Carolina for just about 25 years, operator and consultant to them. Founded and exited from an intake and case management software company, handled a large class action. Anyways, it's kind of done it all in a context of an operator role and a legal technologist in a lot of respects. And so I decided kind of what I wanted to do in the back half of my career. That was working with law firms. And so that's where Maestro Strategic Partners was founded. My partner, Stacy, and I, along with our chief operating officer, Tara Williams, worked together for 20 years. And so between the three of us, from intake to exit, we work with firms.
This feels like something I should know already, so I hope nobody's going to make fun of me for asking. But when you say you were an operator of a law firm, what is that exactly?
Yeah, so the operator is kind of the backbone of the law firm. So my first week at the law firm, I started March 20th, 2000. I came out of pocket $20 for the client postage to get the letters out. I've done everything from been an intake person, been kind of the intake sales person, developed all the way up kind of the food chain from office manager to chief operating officer, ultimately finished my career there as the vice president of strategy, where you were kind of like looking at different verticals and how things should go. So it's really from start to finish of the process. So really, my role was really developing systems, kind of the architect of systems that allowed this firm to grow in a pretty meaningful way from zero to becoming the largest plaintiffs firm in North Carolina and delivering legal services at scale.
That's really awesome. How exactly did you get into the legal marketing space? Like, what was your first start?
Yeah, so it's not really just legal marketing. It's kind of soup to nuts in it. It's a funny story. I started out my career, I enlisted in the Marine Corps right out of high school, got off of active duty, went to college. I was a criminal justice major, and everybody I went to school with became a cop or a lawyer. I went into the ministry, actually. And so I worked as a youth pastor, went to seminary, relocated from California, the San Francisco Bay Area, to North Carolina, and really kind of got burned out in the ministry, wanted to start something, had a 5-year-old who's now 30, and decided that I really didn't want to be a cop because I had the young child, and I couldn't go to law school because I had to, put food on the table, that kind of thing. Applied for this job called a case manager, didn't know what the heck that was. And funny story, first interview didn't go so well. Second interview, I got hired as the office manager, and the rest was kind of history.
I guess in growing that first firm you were working with to the level it got to, what do you think were, like, let's just put a limit on it. What do you think were like the three instrumental strategies in achieving that growth?
Sure. The first thing is we were setting kind of the proverbial big, hairy, audacious goals before that was a vogue term or before there were books written about it. So essentially in our ethos that, the principal is very competitive, to his credit, is always just never satisfied. And it reminds me of the old story of the potato chip, how the potato chip was founded. Was a disgruntled consumer that kept sending back fried potatoes, and he wanted them crispier and saltier. And finally, the chef gets pissed off and kind of creates what is now known as the potato chip, right? This ultra thin, super salty thing, because he just wasn't satisfied, kept sending it back until it was just perfect. And that's really how that principle was. So, I do give him a lot of credit in really kind of leaning forward on that. The other thing I'd say is many times I see in the space, people say, oh, I want to be like Morgan & Morgan, or I want to be like Sweet James, or I want to be like whoever the big firm is. And we never did that. We were always competing against ourselves. So every time we reached a milestone, we wanted to get better without consequence to what competitors were doing. And I'd say the third thing is really focusing on people. Very early on, we just wanted superstars. Nick Saban has a great he gives a great speech. There's a number of reels out there. And he essentially posits the idea that high performers don't want to be around low performers. People who are excellent do not want to be around mediocrity. And those are kind of the three things that really, of anything else, that's kind of was the secret sauce in success.
What's it like? I don't know how to word this question exactly, but what's it like going from a law firm where you're working with a principal who wants to grow and is willing to do it to essentially having something like an agency where you're trying to help a bunch of different personalities, law firm owner personalities grow? I mean, I can speak from personal experience. It was kind of jarring realizing that not all attorneys were as willing to do what it took, I guess, as the ones that I had become used to. So I guess what was that like?
It's actually my favorite thing about what it is that we do. So we work from prolific ambulance chasing firms that never met a marketing channel. They didn't love TV, linear TV, OTT, CTV, billboards, you name it. Like they want to be on it. If they could put their face on a McDonald's, a Big Mac container, they would do it. And we also work with other firms that would rather gouge out their eyes and advertise at all. Boutique litigation firms that get most of their business through referral and just really almost think that it's candidly a little bit beneath them. And so I actually enjoy finding common principles in those respective firms, because for the boutique firm that really can't get comfortable with classic advertising, but they might have a website, it's a funny thing because they don't see the website as a billboard, and I see the website as the greatest billboard. But I have to learn to change my tact with them, because if you equate it to a billboard, they kind of recoil at things like pay-per-click or LSAs or doing things to position themselves in a digital space with strength. Whereas that's not the problem with the big ambulance chasing firms, because they want to figure out, how can I get more juice out of the spend? How can I lower my cost per case? And it's a totally different conversation. And so I actually don't get frustrated between the paradox there, because I understand it. I do understand that it is an honorable thing to want to be judged on your legal work, but it's also an honorable thing to want to grow your business and be as successful as possible. And so I see positives in both of them and don't judge them. We just try to meet the firms where they're at. And so it's kind of energizing, because what I have found is I have never been in a law firm where they're identical. I will tell firms, it's like a family. You might have a nuclear family where you have a mom, a dad, and you have 2 kids and a dog. But if I go to the house next door to you and they have the exact same structure, it's a very different dynamic nonetheless. How they're doing dinner, how they're doing chores or whatever. We've certainly found that to be true in law firms.
Oh, yeah. I handle obviously the marketing side, and then more specifically, a lot of times like the digital tools and pieces like that. And it's amazing to me, absolutely amazing, how you can have many different law firms, some of them using the exact same tools, and sometimes just like how different the marketing data looks. And not just the difference in this person does more referrals and this person does more organic SEO, but also just literally how that information is structured. And you can't really look at the numbers the same way for one firm as you do another firm. It's honestly kind of fascinating how similar and how different each of these practices are. And the question I sometimes struggle to answer is, well, what do the other firms do? And it's like, well, kind of the exact same things, but sometimes they're operated different. I mean, can you explain that a little bit to me? What's the difference between the firms using the exact same tools and the one that gets results and grows and the one that doesn't?
I mean, for my 2 cents, fundamentally, you have to acknowledge the truth about our space. And specifically, I'm talking about the plaintiff space, right? Look, personal injury firms, right? The margins are so high that it suffers a lot of inefficiency. So you can have a firm that's signing 25 cases a month and totally inefficient in their media spend. They have really crappy conversion, all of that sort of thing, but they eat pretty well on 25 cases a month. They've got a beach house. They've got the nice car. They come and go as they please. So it's like, really, what's the problem here? How can I possibly be wrong? I cannot tell you how many poorly run law firms out there think that they're the greatest business people on the planet, because it's like, I've got the successful business. My revenue is higher than my expenses. Well, we have the benefit of seeing margins in some of these shops. That's part of what we do is we look at them. And so what I like to tell our clients is, if you judge your investment portfolio by simply the fact, did it grow? I would argue that's the most ignorant way to judge your portfolio. If you don't have a benchmark like the S&P 500, then the growth of your portfolio has no barometer. You don't know if it's good or bad, if it's simply judged by up. But if I could just take my portfolio and stick it in a S&P 500 ETF and I'm going to grow 8% or whatever the average is year over year, without that, I don't actually know how well I'm doing. And so one of the challenges for these firms is they operate in kind of isolation, which is why we advise our firms, if you're not in a mastermind group, you need to get in one. We facilitate the mastermind groups. And one of the things that I love about those groups is they are remarkably gracious in how they share their failings and their successes. And you have a complete safe space to be open because there are not any competitors in there. And so you're open with your metrics, you're open with what's working, what's not working. So you don't have some vendor doing some kind of a cram down or trying to upsell you on a website or SEO package or anything like that. You're talking with these peer groups. And so I cannot endorse mastermind groups more strongly.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I'm to the point where I'm considering as a part of like what I do as a fractionals, making sure my clients are set up in a mastermind group, because the ones who aren't lack that very important context. And sometimes I'll be talking with them, trying to explain something that, because I've been in attorney masterminds for a long time at this point, things that you and I have probably intuited, trying to explain to them why it's so important that we do this and just really struggling, try to get that message across. So, well, and I got to think of how to word this. So you mentioned that with the bigger practices, they're looking to get more juice out of the squeeze. You're looking for efficiency. Well, I have a few law firms that I've spoken to before, and their main interest is also that efficiency with their marketing spend. But the issue is that their marketing spend is very low. And doesn't matter how many sample or example budgets I show them, they just can't fathom the idea of increasing their budget. They think they can get more for the same amount that they're spending. And this is me trying to get advice, but like, how do I start, other than maybe putting them in a mastermind group, which might be the real answer, but how do you start to explain to attorneys in a way that they'll hear that they do need to increase their marketing budget?
So the first thing is I lead with what I said earlier is recognizing that you're in a high margin business. And for a firm that good enough is good enough, they will never be great. They'll be good enough. If they can't change that mindset as a fractional, you're pushing a boulder up the hill, because they're going to always think, well, maybe you're trying to sell them on something. I'd have a kind of a candid conversation. Like, what's my role here? What is it you want from me? If we're just keeping the plate spinning, okay, well, that's good. That makes it easy for me, because then I won't suggest innovative or new ways to deal with it. On the other hand, they may be operating from a position of ignorance. For example, our recommendation to our clients is pretty universally, you need to be considering 20 to 35% of your revenue to be spending in marketing. If you're not spending that kind of nut in this space, you are behind the eight ball already. And I don't care how efficacious your marketing strategy is. You might have the most efficacious marketing strategy on the planet, but if you're still only spending 10% of your revenue, you are getting outspent. John Morgan is not going into new markets spending 5%. I mean, it's just not, he's coming in and, I mean, maybe 5% of that market's revenue, but he's coming in killing it and crushing it. And he's doing it because he's prolific at brand building and driving up cost per case. And so if you are ignorant as a firm owner, if you think you're going to get by on the cheap because you're smarter than everybody else, maybe you are, but probably you're not.
That's the thing that when I was a marketing director working at a law firm, and this law firm was really well connected. We're doing marketing at a bigger scale than most other small firms were. But even then, I had no idea of the scale of competition there is in personal injury marketing, which is most of what I do. And the budgets are so much bigger than you think. And for marketers who are coming into legal for the first time, and we start talking numbers, like their eyes go wide, and I'm just like, yeah, man, that's what it costs. And it's just something that you really have to appreciate. And going back to what you said earlier, the mastermind groups will kind of broaden your horizons and open your eyes to just exactly what some of these other firms are doing in terms of effort and spend to get the end result.
The other thing I would say is that what also helps firms is they think it's much more of a trust and less of a science and more of a guess than it really is. If your data is tight and you can measure attribution to the best that you can, I mean, obviously we all want 100% attribution. That's not actually a thing. Sorry to the software companies and the ad agencies that sell that as the thing, but it's really very difficult to really have true one-for-one attribution. It's so multi-touch in today's day and age. Was it the billboard I drove by? Was it the TV commercial I saw? Was it the retargeting ad? What drove it to me? I'll tell people all the time, the internet is not just a mode of marketing, but it's a mode of communication. And when you say that to somebody, they think, I guess that's right. I never really thought about it. So if I go on TV, if I saw your TV commercial and I go to your website and I use your web form or I use your chat agent or I call the number that was on your website, who is getting the credit for that lead? For my TV advertising clients, I'll tell them, let's look at your media buy. When are you running your commercials? Look at the time of your commercials and then measure your tracking of your marketing channels. And I'll bet what you'll find is when your TV commercials are running in high rotation, your client referrals go up, your web referrals go up, everything goes up. And if you don't understand that synergistic effect and you don't have that data, it's very difficult to get confidence to spend the money that I'm talking about. And so you really do need to make sure that you're dotting your I's, you're crossing the T's, you have strong data hygiene, and you really do understand how to measure and monitor your marketing spend based on the data, not how you feel, but based on the data.
Let me ask you kind of another selfish question, just give this old marketer a tip or two. But one of the things I struggle with, I know many other marketers do, is we would really like, and just speaking to what you said earlier about the internet being communication, there's so much more to the internet than SEO. And I'm trying really hard to get attorneys and small business owners to see that. And so one thing we need for that is video, short form video. And I've done in the past where we send scripts and, hey, please record this, or can we hire somebody to come in? And that just never really seems to happen. What can marketers do to get more of that really rich, good video content from our attorneys? What are some practical things we could do?
Well, I think you first have to, attorneys are generally speaking logicians. It's got to be logical. It's got to make sense. And so when it comes to SEO, it reminds me of that classic book, Who Moved My Cheese, right? SEO changed and nobody realized SEO changed. The days are gone where it's all about the backlinks I have. It's all about how much fresh content I have. It's not what it is anymore. And I've actually had this debate. I think now it's really understood that Google has changed the rules and now we're living in a GEO world. It's not to say SEO is dead by no means, but it certainly has changed. You need only go, I don't know where you're based out of today, but if you go and you put in car accident lawyer and you look at the SERP return, what are you going to find? You may find where you're at a generative AI response. In Charlotte, North Carolina, you may not. In Tampa, you might. In Dallas, you might not. I've seen it. I do this daily. I see that the SERP returns are different. But what isn't different is you're going to see the LSA served at the top. You may or may not see a pay-per-click ad. Then you're going to see the map pack. You may or may not see another pay-per-click ad. And then what will you see? Then you'll start to see your classic SEO returns. Well, what does that mean? That means SEO that used to get you to the top of the pack or top of the fold just dropped you to below the fold. When you show them that, then you'll understand, well, I do need some short form videos because I do need to break through the noise. I do need to start doing some things differently because the old way isn't going to work anymore. And in the end, if an attorney doesn't want to commit some kind of time to content development, they are ultimately going to relegate themselves to the bottom of the GEO pack because we know AI content is going to start to get downgraded to the benefit of human content because the AI is just going to otherwise be the cycle of information that's just repeating because it's generating information that it's also consuming. So it needs more human content. So for that reason, I think if they understand the logic of it, if I say that, like most people be like, oh yeah, well that makes sense. I'll believe my lying eyes because I've noticed that my SEO returns gone lower and lower down the SERP page.
I'm so relieved to hear you say all that, honestly. I mean, so much of that, the content and backlinks thing, because it's so difficult to explain to attorneys who are, I guess, a little bit out of the loop, the move my cheese thing. SEO has changed so much. And some of that change happened way long ago, and we're only really clocking it now, or some businesses are only really clocking it now. And it's websites tremendously important. I always try to underscore that. I mean, it's usually the place that people look before they sign a fee agreement. I mean, generally. So it serves this like huge value and purpose, but content and backlinks, oh my gosh, please just sit down and record a video, or don't spend your time using AI to build some agent that's going to write your content for you. Just record a video, just write something, because like you said, that stuff, people don't like AI. There's public opinion is really turning against AI.
I gave a presentation a year or so ago about that. And some firms are very cutting edge, bleeding edge on AI. And I am obviously, that's kind of on my brand. I make AI, do AI development. I absolutely do that. But I tend to focus my AI development on case generation or operational enhancement, those sorts of things, not necessarily content generation. And here's why. Ask the AI yourself. Don't believe me. Put it in chat, Gemini, Claude, whatever it is you're using, and ask it. Is the future of SEO going to lean towards AI generated content or human generated content? And keep your own counsel on what it responds, because it's going to tell you human content is going to be superior, because we know Google's moving to a trust environment. The EAT environment, where it wants to assess the trustworthiness of a site, is predicated on a number of factors, including how much the firms are producing for the users.
And unfortunately, at this point, AI it's an umbrella tool in many ways, because it can be used to make content, or it can be used to automate, which I also use AI to automate quite a bit. And mostly for myself and my company, as a fractional, that's automations are kind of a linchpin, but they don't always include AI, if you know what I mean. But so these things, those tools are really cool. Let me ask you this. What's like a practical AI infused system that law firms can start to adopt safely? Not safely,
marketing,
is a good word for it, but efficiently, I guess.
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple of things that you can do. So you can do AI B-roll. For example, if you're talking about like in a marketing context, that's the most obvious one for me. Hey, I have to put myself in a talking head role, but I need people in a conference room. I don't want to bring my people into a conference room and film that. So I can just have, agents generate that easy. You can have clean video generated and then bring your captions on. One of my pet peeves is seeing talking head captions where the captions are wrong because they're AI generated, and I tend to speak quickly, and it doesn't always catch that I'm blurring a word together. And so it'll show the word butchered, or, I can't think of or caught. The English language is you have caught, and caught. I slept on a cot. I caught the ball. I got caught in traffic, that kind of thing. And it doesn't always pick up those nuances. So just knowing when to leverage AI in that process is a good one. 11 Labs has a great voice, agent that you can use. I've been able to replicate my partner Stacy's voice almost perfectly using that tool. I have not been able to do it for myself. So I have to still record my stuff because it's not getting you could tell, said another way, if I showed you, if you went to like our Instagram account and you saw a reel that we did for Stacy, you could see, or you might not be able to tell, but it's AI generally speaking. If I'm doing it, it's not, because when I've tried to do it, my kids can pick it out like that. It's not your voice. And so different tools are more efficacious depending on the person that you're using with, the purpose that you're using with, and the timing of it. That's the other thing I would say, is that any tool that we talk about today could change tomorrow or in a month, and certainly in 6 months. And so we have been very disciplined in our recommendations to clients about the things that we use or that we recommend, because these things are changing so freaking fast.
I mean, they really absolutely are. And, I generally think when it all comes down to it, we're still producing video, which is a marketing asset, and we're still judging the performance of it. And how much or how little AI was used in it, ultimately it doesn't matter, because we're tracking the thing's performance. And I have seen really good uses of AI in video. Tim Miley in West Virginia, Miley Law Group, he did like an AI video where he himself wasn't an AI avatar, but I think he had a marketing agency pitching him AI ads in the video. And it was really funny. And he was kind of the straight man in the comedy, so to speak, in that instance. The AI video was silly where he was really practical, and it was great marketing. And so there are other ways to infuse AI and to make things easier, captions, edits, B-roll, like all that you said. But like the thought leadership, there's still a huge need for attorneys to make that, if only to distinguish themselves in the marketplace. Because where I get back to where I'm frustrated with SEO just as a whole is an SEO company making a whole bunch of articles that could be copy and paste and just had the business name changed. That's not going to help you stand out. I'm so sick of those types of articles.
It's funny, I was just smirking. So there are people who are on LinkedIn and Facebook. This is the new vogue thing where they're using an AI or they have a consultant that's drafting posts for them. And it's got like this one line hook, and then there's like a paragraph, and it becomes like this tome that tells this kind of flowery tale of something. And there's truth interwoven in it, but it was very clearly not drafted by that person because people don't write that way, they don't speak that way. And to me, when I see that, it undercuts the authenticity, not just because I recognize it, just as kind of almost as a clinician, I recognize it, but I also think, gosh, you missed an opportunity because here I was ready to engage in your content and actually looking for some authenticity. And by virtue of you using an inauthentic mechanism, you diminished in my role, or in my eyes rather. And so I think it's like, you just have to we're busy. We're all professionals. We're all busy, and we all use AI. I've used AI in social media, so I'm not downing it per se. I do think that there are some social channels. It's the other thing I'll tell you. There are some social channels that X is appropriate and Y is appropriate. There are things that I can do on TikTok that I might not want to do on Instagram, or I might not do, that was probably a bad example, on LinkedIn, certainly. There's some really famous brands out there that have done stuff on LinkedIn that I just cringe. I just think not the appropriate setting for that shtick.
LinkedIn is basically the only social media platform I'm any good at. And I will say, though, LinkedIn is a bit like social media on easy mode because everyone has an interest to engage in the content and share and be supportive. I really want to get good at one of these other social media platforms, and I study it. And you're so right. There are so many unspoken, almost culture rules in each of these platforms, and Reddit. And part of the fun of marketing is finding what's predictable about that culture. And once you find what's predictable, Reddit being an example, you can kind of mine it for marketing value, building an account with karma and all this good stuff, ultimately getting mentioned on Reddit, hopefully.
As you said that's probably just the fact that that sets you apart from the vast majority of marketing talking heads that I've spoken to. I mean, Reddit is gold. I understand Google reviews are awesome, but I would rather, all things being equal, I'd rather have a positive Reddit mention than a 5-star Google review. And if you don't know, ask Tiffany or Eric why. We know Google has an arrangement and they're pulling all that Reddit content right into their AI. If you want to be served to prospective clients, get mentioned in Reddit positively.
I really appreciate that. I have all of my fractional CMO clients. I'm like, hey, let's do Reddit. And I'm really excited about it. And they're like, and maybe I need to work on selling these ideas a little bit better and their importance. But yeah, that's one I have trouble getting people enthused about. It is so important. And it's baffling to me when it gets a pass.
They're not mutually exclusive things. I certainly don't want to be misunderstood. I mean, yes, Google reviews are important. You want successful LSAs, you have to have successful Google reviews. No question about it. But you fundamentally do not understand where GEO is shifting if you do not understand the importance of Reddit. I'm not saying that Reddit is the same kind of channel as doing a Facebook ad or getting that direct ROI. That's not the game that we're playing. We're almost using Reddit as the rudder to turning a boat, not necessarily selling tickets to get on the boat. It's just a different benefit to a larger goal.
That's a really good, I'm going to probably steal that analogy from you because that is a really good analogy I'll have to ask you my last two questions because we're going long, but it's not even exclusively Reddit. It's any forum-based website is really where you want to be and where you want to be recommended. Google reviews, I feel like we get like obsessed with them. The owners do. I have like 0 Google reviews, by the way, so I'm an elitist about it. But like, I also not
leave you a Google review now after this.
Do not. No. Now that I said that, I would be like, shoot, now I bragged about it. Now I'm going to get a Google review. I'm not B2C though. Attorneys are B2C.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And they're certainly important, but what about every other place that your brand can be mentioned on the internet? I keep telling people just focus on increasing the number of times other websites, not yours, talk about your brand. And you'll be fine. But everyone gets laser focused in on the site. It's important, but Google is really ranking what is being said about your brand, not necessarily your website.
That's right. Look at Glassdoor. Look at the Better Business Bureau. Your firm gets mentioned on either one of those places in a negative way, man, you'll play hell to get rid of it. And it's like a tattoo, and it will show up naturally because Google views them as high trust environments. And, I'm not taking a position on whether that's right or wrong, but it is nonetheless.
Well, and I promise I will wrap this up after this. It's just a good topic to talk about. But I think people need to appreciate how much more difficult it's going to be to get Google reviews in the future, because AI has enabled Google to mass review, so to speak, the reviews you're getting and flag the fakes, flag things that don't look authentic or violate their guidelines. So, down the road, I feel like we're heading to a world where getting an actual true client review, it's going to be a skill. It's going to be a skill that a lot of businesses, if they care about that, need to get good at. All right, Eric, so I apologize for running long. We ended up getting in some interesting topics. So last two questions. I usually ask people, what's something we didn't talk about that you wanted to get into today?
I think we covered the waterfront I just think that AI is going to change every facet of the practice. I don't think it's going to I actually don't think you can be unduly hyperbolic about the impact it's going to have on marketing, on intake, on operations, on resolution, the whole nine, just across the board. And we've really never seen anything like it. So it's a very scary and a very exciting time to really lean into AI, because if you are not, you are going to get crushed. It's not a nice to have. You must understand it and appreciate how it's going to impact your practice across the board.
That's fun. It certainly is a fun topic. And where do you want people to look you up and learn more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a old school and a prolific emailer. So the best way to reach out to me is Eric at evolve.AI. You can go to visit us on our website, evolve.AI. I love talking shop, so I will talk to anybody. They're happy to set an appointment. I'll talk to them just about anything. One of the things our business prides itself in is we don't sell. We have conversations. Essentially, the way that it works is our knowledge and our passion is really the worm on the hook. If you think that we can help your firm, you're going to hire us. We don't need to sell it. And if we need to sell it, we're probably not the firm, the company for you. So talk to anybody about anything, Eric at evolve.AI.
And I highly encourage it, just because he's going to back up a lot of the things I've been trying to tell you guys. So please reach out and talk with them and get a second opinion if you don't quite trust me. But thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate it. And thank you so much, Eric, for being on the show. We will talk to everyone very soon.